I'm recording this from a nursing home in rural Montana. I'm 83 years old. I have stage 4 lung cancer, and the doctors say I have maybe 3 months left. The morphine makes my hands shake and my mind fog, but I need to get this out while I still can. While I can still remember the details clearly. Because 52 years ago, I did something terrible. Something I've kept secret my entire adult life. Something I thought I'd take to my grave. Until 6 weeks ago, when 2 federal agents knocked on my door and told me they knew. They'd always known. And they'd been watching me for over half a century to make sure I never talked. Before I tell you what I did in 1972, you need to do something. Hit that like button immediately. Subscribe to this channel. Download this video the second it finishes and save it everywhere you can. Because I'm violating a non-disclosure agreement I signed under duress in 1972. Because the federal agents who visited me 6 weeks ago made it very clear that speaking about this would result in consequences for my family even after I'm dead. I'm speaking anyway. Because I'm dying and I don't care anymore what they do to me. Because the guilt of what I did has been eating me alive for 52 years. And because the thing I captured deserves to have its story told, even if telling it destroys what little reputation I have left. My name is William Hargrove. Everyone calls me Bill. I'm 83 years old. In 1972, I was 31, working as a logging foreman in the Kootenai National Forest of northwestern Montana. I was married with 2 young kids. I hunted to put meat on the table. I was a good shot, a hard worker, a man who kept his word and paid his debts. I thought I was a good person. Thought I understood right from wrong. Thought I knew the difference between animals and something more. I was wrong about all of it. It happened in November of 1972. Early winter, first heavy snow. I was hunting alone about 15 miles from the logging camp where I worked, looking for elk. I'd been out since dawn, following a game trail through dense forest, when I found tracks I didn't recognize. Massive footprints, roughly human-shaped, but 18 inches long and sunk deep in the snow. Fresh. Made within the last hour. I'd heard stories about Bigfoot. Everyone who worked in the deep woods had heard the stories. Most of us dismissed them as folklore logger superstition, the kind of tales old-timers told to spook newcomers. But I'd also heard other stories. Whispered conversations about hunters who'd seen things they couldn't explain. Guides who'd found evidence that didn't match any known animal. Rangers who'd filed reports that were classified and never discussed. I followed those tracks. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Arrogance. The belief that whatever made them was just an animal I could identify if I got close enough. I followed for maybe 40 minutes, moving quietly, rifle ready, tracking through terrain that got rougher and more remote. I found him in a small ravine where he'd taken shelter from the snow. He was massive, 7.5 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur. He was sleeping or resting, curled against a rock face, breath misting in the cold air. And I had a clear shot from maybe 60 yards. I should have left. Should have backed away slowly and never mentioned what I'd seen. But I didn't. Because in that moment, looking at this creature that shouldn't exist, I saw something else. I saw proof. I saw fame. I saw money. I saw my name in history books as the man who'd finally captured definitive evidence of Bigfoot. I was 31 years old, working a dangerous job for low pay, raising a family in a trailer, trying to build something better. And here was my ticket out. Right there in my rifle sights. All I had to do was take the shot. So I did. But I didn't aim to kill. I aimed for the shoulder, trying to wound, to disable, to make capture possible. Because a body would raise too many questions. But a living specimen? That was worth millions. That was everything. The shot was clean. Hit exactly where I'd aimed. The creature went down with a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Not an animal cry, but something closer to a human scream. Pain and shock and betrayal all mixed into one sound that shouldn't have come from anything that wasn't a person. He tried to run, tried to climb out of the ravine on 3 good limbs. But the wound was too severe. He made it maybe 30 feet before collapsing. And I approached with my rifle ready. expecting him to fight, expecting aggression. Instead, he looked at me. And in his eyes, God, in his eyes I saw something I wasn't prepared for. Not animal fear. Not simple pain. I saw awareness. I saw understanding. I saw him recognize what I was, what I'd done, what was going to happen next. And I saw him accept it, give up, surrender to something he knew he couldn't fight. That's when I should have stopped. Should have realized I'd just shot something conscious, something aware, something that wasn't an animal, but also wasn't quite human. Something that occupied a gray area that made what I was doing feel less like hunting and more like something else. Something darker. But I didn't stop. I'd already committed, already made the choice, already pulled the trigger. So I did what I'd planned to do. I used rope from my pack to secure his arms and legs. He didn't fight, just made sounds that might have been communication, might have been pleading, might have been saying things I couldn't understand but could feel in my gut were wrong to ignore. I made a travois from branches and rope, dragged him 3 miles through snow to where I'd left my truck. It took hours. He was conscious the whole time, making those sounds, looking at me with those eyes that held too much understanding. By the time I got him to the truck, I was exhausted and starting to have doubts, starting to realize the enormity of what I'd done. But I'd come too far to turn back. I had a plan. I'd build a shed behind my trailer 6 months earlier, told my wife it was for storing tools and hunting equipment. But really, I'd built it for this, for the possibility that I might catch something worth containing. The shed was solid, reinforced walls, lock on the door, hidden enough that neighbors wouldn't see what was inside. I got him there after dark. My wife was visiting her mother with the kids. They'd be gone for 3 days. Perfect timing. I dragged him into the shed, secured him to the wall with chains I'd installed weeks earlier, dressed his wound with supplies I'd stolen from the logging camp's first aid station. Basic field medicine. Enough to keep him alive. Enough to keep my investment from dying before I could figure out how to monetize it. He was conscious through all of it, watching me, those eyes never leaving my face, judging me, seeing exactly what kind of man I really was beneath the surface respectability. I need you to stop here and comment. Tell me what you think I should have done. Tell me if there was a point where I could have turned back, made different choices, been a better person than I was. Because what happened over the next 48 hours has haunted me for 52 years. Has made me question every decision I've made since. Has made me understand that sometimes the worst monsters are the ones who think they're just being practical. So comment now. What would you have done? I spent that first night trying to figure out what to do next. Who to contact. How to leverage this discovery into financial security without getting arrested or having my specimen confiscated by authorities. I made calls to universities, to museums, to wildlife organizations. All from payphones, never giving my real name, just testing the waters to see who might be interested in purchasing proof of Bigfoot. The responses were uniform. Bring us the body, we'll examine it. But nobody wanted a living specimen. Too many complications. Too many ethical questions. Too much risk. Dead was easy. Living was problematic. So I started considering that option. Killing him. Preserving the body. Selling to the highest bidder. It was just business, I told myself. Just making the most of an opportunity. He wasn't human. Wasn't protected by any laws. Was just an unknown animal that happened to look somewhat human. Killing him wouldn't be murder. Would just be harvesting a resource. But I couldn't do it. Because every time I went into that shed, every time I looked at him chained to that wall, I saw those eyes. And I knew, absolutely knew in a way I couldn't rationalize away, that killing him would be murder. That he was conscious. That he understood what was happening. That he was suffering not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, in ways that animals don't suffer. On the second day, he stopped making sounds. Stopped trying to communicate. Just watched me with those eyes when I brought water, when I checked his wound, when I paced around the shed trying to decide what to do. Silent judgment. Silent accusation. Silent witnessing of who I really was. That night, my family came home. My wife asked how my hunting trip had gone. I told her I hadn't seen anything. She noticed I seemed distracted, asked if something was wrong. I told her I was tired. She accepted that because she trusted me. Because I was her husband, father of her children, a man she believed was good and honest and decent. And the whole time, 20 feet from our trailer, I had something conscious chained up in a shed. Something suffering because of my greed. Something I'd shot and captured and planned to either sell or kill for profit. On the third day, they came. 2 men in dark suits driving a government vehicle. They knocked on my door at 6 in the morning. Showed me identification that said they were from the Department of Interior, but with a division I'd never heard of. Asked if they could speak with me privately. Asked if I'd been hunting in the Kootenai National Forest 3 days ago. Asked if I'd found anything unusual. I denied everything. Told them I didn't know what they were talking about. But they didn't believe me. Didn't even pretend to believe me. Just stood there on my porch with these flat expressions that said they knew exactly what I'd done and were giving me one chance to cooperate. Mr. Hargrove, the older one said, his voice quiet and cold, "We know what you have in your shed. We know you captured a specimen from a protected species. And we're here to retrieve it. You can cooperate and face minimal consequences, or you can resist and face federal charges that will destroy your life and your family. Your choice." I don't know what you're talking about. Then you won't mind if we search your property. They didn't wait for permission. Walked straight to the shed. The older one pulled out a key, my key, or at least a copy of it, and opened the lock I thought was secure. And they went inside. I followed, my heart hammering. Found them standing in front of the creature I'd chained to the wall. He was conscious, watching them with the same awareness he'd shown me. But his reaction to them was different. Not fear. Not resignation. Something closer to relief. Like he recognized them. Like he'd been expecting them. "Jesus Christ," the younger agent said, looking at the creature's wounded shoulder. "What the hell did you do to him?" "I shot him. Wounded him. Brought him here. I thought." "You thought you'd make money off him," the older agent interrupted. "Sell him to some university or museum or private collector. Make a fortune off a species that's been under federal protection since 1969. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? Protected since 1969? That's impossible. This species isn't even recognized. Publicly, no. Officially, they're classified under the Endangered Species Protection Act of 1969, Category 7, Non-Disclosed Protected Species. Capturing, harming, or attempting to exploit them is a federal crime punishable by up to 20 years in prison." I stared at him. "You're saying the government knows about them, has known, has been protecting them while letting everyone believe they don't exist?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And you just committed a serious federal crime against a species that's more endangered than you can imagine. There are maybe 200 of them left in all of North America. Maybe. And you shot one, chained it up, and were planning to either sell or kill it for profit." The younger agent was examining the creature's wound, pulling out medical supplies from a kit I hadn't seen him bring in. "He needs proper treatment. This wound is infected. He's dehydrated. He's been in shock for 3 days. Mr. Hargrove, you're lucky he's not dead. Because if he died, you'd be looking at a minimum sentence of 15 years in federal prison." "What happens now?" "Now we take him," the older agent said. "We provide proper medical care. We release him back into protected territory. And you," he paused, studying me with those flat, cold eyes, "you face consequences. But the nature of those consequences depends on your cooperation." They produced a document, a non-disclosure agreement, 30 pages of legal language that basically said I acknowledged capturing a protected species, that I agreed to never discuss the species or the incident, that I understood violations would result in immediate prosecution, that I waived various rights in exchange for reduced penalties. "If you sign this," the older agent explained, "you'll be placed under supervision for the rest of your life. We'll monitor you. Make sure you never discuss what you found. In exchange, you won't be prosecuted, won't lose your job or your family. You'll just live with the knowledge that we're watching, always watching. And if you ever talk about this to anyone for any reason, we'll know. And we'll act. And if I don't sign, then we arrest you right now. Charge you with multiple federal crimes. Your wife learns about what you did. Your children grow up visiting you in prison. Your name becomes associated with illegal wildlife trafficking. Your choice. I signed. What else could I do? I was trapped by my own greed, my own terrible decisions. So I signed away my right to ever discuss the biggest discovery of my life. Agreed to be monitored forever. Accepted that I'd live under surveillance for crimes I'd committed, but wouldn't be officially punished for. They released the creature from the chains. He could barely stand. The younger agent supported him, helped him walk out of the shed. The creature never looked at me. Not once during the whole process. Just kept his eyes on the agents, on the people who'd come to rescue him from what I'd done. They loaded him into their vehicle. The older agent turned to me one final time. Mr. Hargrove, understand this. That creature you captured? He's more intelligent than you gave him credit for. Smart enough to understand he'd been captured. Smart enough to know we'd eventually find him because we monitor the population. Smart enough to know all he had to do was survive until we arrived. And now he'll be released back into protected territory where he'll live out his life. While you'll live out yours knowing you tortured a conscious being for 3 days because you wanted money. They left, drove away with my prisoner, my victim, in the back of their vehicle. And I stood in my yard watching them go, understanding that my life had just fundamentally changed. That I'd be watched forever. That I'd signed away my ability to ever discuss the most significant thing that had ever happened to me. 52 years. That's how long I've kept this secret. 52 years of living under surveillance. I could sometimes see and sometimes couldn't. 52 years of knowing they were monitoring my phone calls, my mail, my movements. 52 years of watching my words, censoring my stories, never being able to explain to my family why I sometimes got quiet when people talked about hunting or wildlife or unexplained things in the forest. My wife died 10 years ago, never knowing what I'd done. My children are in their 50s now, successful, with families of their own. And they don't know their father once captured and tortured a Bigfoot for 3 days because he wanted to profit from proving they existed. 6 weeks ago, the agents came back. Different agents, but same agency. They knocked on my nursing home door, showed me identification, told me they knew about the cancer diagnosis. Asked if I planned to tell anyone before I died. Make a deathbed confession. Clear my conscience. I told them I didn't know. Hadn't decided yet. They reminded me of the NDA I'd signed. Reminded me that violations would result in prosecution of anyone I told. That if I spoke to family, they'd be charged as accessories. That my legacy would be destroying my children's lives by involving them in federal crimes. But they also said something that surprised me. The older of the two agents, a woman maybe 40 years old, looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Mr. Hargrove, what you did in 1972 was terrible. But you didn't kill him. You didn't follow through with your worst plans. And the creature you captured survived. We tracked him for another 37 years. He had offspring. He contributed to population recovery. He lived a full life despite what you did to him. Is he still alive? He passed away in 2009. Natural causes. Old age. Died in the forest, surrounded by his family. But before he died, we documented something unusual. He returned to the area where you captured him. Visited it multiple times over the years. We think he was checking. Making sure you hadn't captured others. Making sure the area was safe for his kind. She paused, watching my reaction. He remembered you, Mr. Hargrove. Remembered what you did. And he spent part of his life making sure it didn't happen to others. You think about that. You think about how you're remembered by a species you tried to exploit. They left after that. Told me they'd be monitoring for any violation of the NDA. Reminded me that speaking would have consequences. But they also said something else. Said that if I wanted to clear my conscience, there were ways to do it that didn't violate the agreement. Metaphorical confessions. Fictionalized accounts. Stories that couldn't be proven true, but would get the guilt out. So that's what I'm doing. I'm recording this testimony. And I'm framing it as exactly what it is. A story told by a dying old man about something that may or may not have happened in 1972. I'm not claiming it's true. Not providing proof. Not naming specific locations or agencies. Just telling a story. A confession dressed up as fiction so that I can die with some of the guilt lifted. Even if I can never fully make amends for what I did. If this story is true, if I really did capture a Bigfoot in 1972, then I want to say something. I want to say I'm sorry. Sorry for the pain I caused. Sorry for the 3 days of captivity. Sorry for seeing something conscious and reducing it to a profit opportunity. Sorry for being the kind of man who would shoot and chain something that was aware and suffering just because I wanted money. And if the government really has been protecting these creatures since 1969 while maintaining public denial of their existence, I understand why. Because humans like me, humans who'd capture and exploit anything they thought could make them rich, are exactly why these creatures need protection. Why they need to be officially denied while being secretly managed. I'm 83 years old. I have maybe 3 months left. And I'm spending that time trying to make peace with what I did half a century ago. Trying to believe that the creature I captured really did survive, really did have offspring, really did live a full life despite my actions. But I'll never know for sure. Because I signed that NDA. Because I've been watched for 52 years. Because speaking directly would destroy the family I have left. So I'm telling you a story. Maybe true, maybe not. A story about a hunter who captured something he shouldn't have in 1972. Who kept it secret until federal agents knocked on his door. Who lived under surveillance for half a century because of a terrible choice made in a moment of greed. Hit that like button one final time. Subscribe. Download this video before it's taken down. Because whether this is true or fiction, whether I really captured a Bigfoot or this is just an old man's guilt-driven fantasy, the message remains the same. Some things should stay hidden. Some secrets are protected for good reasons. And some choices haunt you forever, no matter how long you live after making them. My name is William Hargrove. I'm 83 years old. I'm dying. And I'm telling you a story about the worst thing I've ever done. Whether it happened or not, you'll have to decide for yourself. But if it did happen, if there really are federal agents monitoring populations of creatures that officially don't exist, if there really are people who captured these beings and were forced into silence, then this is my confession. This is my apology. This is my attempt to make amends before I die. And if they come after me for this, if they prosecute a dying old man for telling a story he framed as fiction, then that in itself will be proof that the story is true. So preserve this. Share it. Decide for yourself what you believe. And remember, the worst monsters are sometimes the ones who think they're just being practical. I was that monster in 1972, and I've lived with that knowledge every day since.